and Nancy Pelosi's failed radical socialist policies. So when I talk about winning next November, it is important because these issues are at stake.
Yeah, that's right. Now, you come from the state of New York, the state where my parents were born, the state where we're constantly reading that Republicans really have to be awfully careful coming from a state that's turned increasingly blue. I look at these Biden approval ratings. Many of the polls show him just above 50, some as high as 54. In the state of New York, which should be a happy place for Joe Biden, are these policies popular of Joe Biden's, or even New Yorkers starting to think twice about open borders and higher taxes and wars breaking out in the Middle East?
Joe Biden's policies are not popular in New York State, and we also have a unified radical socialist government in New York State. So we've seen how damaging that direction can be. And I'll talk about a couple different issues. This defund the police, which is the platform, frankly, of today's Democratic Party, that has devastated the safety and security of New York City and the state of New York. Crime has been on the rise for the past year. You've seen the rioting and looting. Just recently, we're getting new numbers from the NYPD that has had much less success recruiting future NYPD officers because of the anti-law enforcement posture in New York State and from Democrats nationally. But also the business community is suffering. The shutdowns in terms of the impact of the tourist industry, the restaurants, small businesses, that has been devastating, whether you're in upstate or downstate New York. In my district, if you talk to any small business owner, they are ready to hire workers, but they can't find people to work because the incentive that Pelosi and Biden have put forward is that they get paid more staying out of work than the incentive going back to work. So Republicans have a real contrast, whether you're in New York or whether you're in a traditionally red state, to put forth our policies that will safely reopen the economy, reopen our schools, get back to work, and have a strong national security.
You worked for President Bush. I worked for President Bush. Mercy worked for President Bush. 20 years ago, at least for me, not for you, you're a little younger than I am, but we were taught the Republican approach on some of these really tough issues. It's like immigration, for instance. And now you see the extremism of a Democratic Party that's embraced socialism and very radical ideas. Do you find it more unifying for different types of Republicans, conservatives, moderates, libertarians, strong Trump supporters, others, over the fact that when they have these crazy ideas of an open border, defunding cops, keeping kids out of school, supposedly to make them healthy, but it really is just a genuflection to teachers' unions. When you see this agenda, do you see more unity in this coalition than maybe we've seen in the last 20 years?
I certainly see unity among Republican voters, but I also see the opportunity for us to make inroads with those independent voters, which we will win, and also soft Democrats who have felt that the far left, again, radical socialist policies are way out of touch. And when you talk about border issues, Matt, it's not that long ago that Chuck Schumer was supportive of funding for a border wall. So it shows how much the Democrats have moved when it comes to issues like border security. Now they are the party of mass amnesty, and we are seeing the results of that. And this is putting people's lives at risk. I have Border Patrol officers in my district on the northern border who have been transferred to the southern border because there is such a surge. That puts the northern border in a very difficult position, but that impacts every community in my district, even though we're on the US-Canadian border. That's how much and how dangerous the southern border crisis is.
One of the things that I'm really struggling with as someone who's worked in the nation's capital for a long time is how many of my friends who are within, we used to say inside the Beltway, Trump famously called it the swamp, how many of them aren't understanding what's happening around the country and all the change that's out there, and the fact that Republicans actually, and independents, and you said people that are even maybe Democrats but open to this agenda, how disgusted they are by how Washington has been doing things. You're somebody, you have a lot of friends in this town as well. It's not really a bad town, it's a necessary town, but is it painful for you when sometimes you have people you've worked with for a long time who just aren't getting the politics of the moment and they're not listening to people around the country?
Well, I call it the chattering cocktail class. It's
Yes,
very
very good.
disconnected. It's very disconnected from everyday
Yeah,
people across the country. You know, my job as a member of Congress is I represent about 700,000 hardworking people in upstate New York, and I go home and I spend time in my district and I listen to them. Their concerns are so far disconnected than I think what people often focus on within the Beltway and among sort of the talking heads chattering cocktail class. It's also very disconnected from what the editorial boards tend to focus on. I have
right.
gotten attacked by pretty much every editorial board, but you know what I'm hearing from the people at home in my district? And this is not just Republicans and conservatives, this is Democrats and independents as well. They are glad we are stepping up to talk about the issues that matter to the American people rather than taking the bait from the very biased, very monoculture mainstream media where they question and they accuse people across this country who maybe have a different perspective than those in Washington, D.C. I will always represent the people in my district, even if, and it mostly is in opposition to the chattering class in Washington.
I love that. That's awesome. And I just find it really, really un-American for 2/3 of your colleagues. They're not getting the PAC checks from companies because they believe in such a crazy concept as voter ID. Just shows you what a bad place we're in. And we're also in a bad place when it comes to these questions of foreign policy. When you see what the pounding Israel is taking, both from Hamas and from opinion leaders in this country and around the world, how does that make you feel? How does it make your constituents feel?
Well, my constituents stand strongly with Israel. I've been to Israel numerous times. Israel is our most important ally in the region, and we need to stand up as Americans and not hesitate the way the Biden administration has. Hamas is a terrorist group. It's funded by Iran, the greatest global sponsor of terrorism. And Israel, thank goodness for Iron Dome and the protection that they have
Amen.
provided for civilians, Israelis and Palestinians alike, because of Iron Dome and the work that we've done when it comes to our missile defense. Republicans stand strongly for Israel, and you're seeing on the left, this has been a real divide among the Democratic Party. With leaders like Rashida Tlaib and AOC Ilhan Omar really dragging the party far away from that traditional bipartisan coalition of understanding the importance of our strong alliance with Israel. And it should concern every American. And certainly the Biden administration did not speak clearly early enough when it came to standing by Israel and their right to defend themselves and their people.
Congresswoman Stefanik, Chairwoman Stefanik, I need to call you now. A lot of conservatives are really worried about what they see coming out of Washington, D.C. They're concerned about all this socialism. For some of them, you're a new face, maybe a new voice. Many others really respect how dogged you were throughout the Democrats' attacks on President Trump. What's your message for our CPAC community, for conservatives generally, who are getting awfully discouraged with what they see as like a cancel culture from the media and from these elite institutions around the country? Do you have a special message to give them some inspiration?
Absolutely. So when I ran for Congress, I ran as an underdog and I ran as a conservative candidate. I ran on issues such as protecting the Second Amendment, standing up for the Constitution, standing up for the rule of law, and standing up for the hardworking Americans. I ran against ever voting to raise taxes. I ran in support of law enforcement. These are conservative principles. I am proud to have the highest rating of any Republican woman in the House. I have an A+ from the NRA. I'm proudly pro-life and have been endorsed by the Susan B. Anthony list for my races for Congress. And I'm one of the most conservative voices from the Northeast. But most importantly, Matt, we flipped a district. We took a district that voted for President Obama twice, and we have worked doggedly to get out our message of conservative principles, standing up for the Constitution, and now it wins Republicans by double digits. And we also help our down ballot races in counties at the state level, as well as the local and school board level. That's really important for the conservative movement because the stakes are so high at the national level, but they're high at the local level too, when you think about what's going on in school districts across this country. So yes, the media is going to attack me from all sides, but I am proud of my record of flipping a district and of being one of the most conservative voices we have in the Northeast, but also someone who speaks in a unifying way and is working to make sure that Republicans and the conservative message that we're in the strongest position to win next November so we can really stop this radical agenda of Pelosi, Biden, and Schumer ramming down socialism down the American people's throats.
I always say I'm glad for the Trump vaccines so we can get rid of our Biden masks. And the next goal is to rip down Pelosi's wall around the Capitol. Is there some hope that we can go back to some normalcy in our nation's capital and they can take down these ridiculous barriers?
Yes, Nancy Pelosi has unfortunately used the pandemic to really try to grab power. She's changed how Congress works. It has been very difficult for the American people to even go to their members of Congress, congressional office. That's a part of who we are as an American government, and that has been ridiculous. The wall around the Capitol, while the Democrats are opposed to a border wall on the southern border, it's just do as I say, not as I do. It's so hypocritical. She also right now is not following CDC guidance when it comes to masks. And again, Pelosi is not the public health expert. She continues to play politics with this. So Republicans are going to continue to expose this hypocrisy and really advocate for us getting back to work, not just in Congress, but also across the country.
Well, Elise Stefanik, these are common sense ideas. We love the fact that you're going to stay on message. The number one message is stop this socialism. And the number two message is do everything we can to take back the House. By the way, I'm very optimistic. I think we're going to do it because I don't think America really likes socialism too much. And we appreciate everything you're doing. We look forward to working with you even more. And thanks for being on CPAC Now.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for all you do. And thank you to all of the conservative activists across the country. You are so important to the movement, and we're going to work together as one team to stop socialism and to win back the House next November.
Great. Well, we're going to be right back after this short break talking about CPAC in Texas. It's going to be big because everything in Texas is big. Welcome back to CPAC Now. I'm joined by one of our great board members. We have a great board, really.
We do.
Veronica Birkenstack from Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us, Veronica. And thanks for all you do for the American Conservative Union. And thanks for talking us into going to Dallas for our next big CPAC.
Yes, we're very excited about our Dallas opportunity. And we have a great program planned for all their conservative friends in Texas and other states as well. Texas,
yeah, it'll be from all over the nation.
All over the nation.
And we know we picked the right state because yesterday, Greg Abbott said Texas is prohibiting mask mandates by government entities starting May 21st. Good timing. Local governments attempting to impose mask mandates can be fined up to $1,000. Just the opposite of what Nancy Pelosi is doing in the House of Representatives. We're also prohibiting public schools from mandating masks after June 4th. Texans, not government, should decide their best health practices. And I quote tweeted the Governor Abbott, I knew we picked the right state for CPAC because we had CPAC in Florida with the great Governor Ron DeSantis, but there were still some local mandates, and it was very chafing for folks, and it'll be nice to have freedom.
Yes, we're excited that the hotel that we've selected, the Hilton Anatole, has given us complete freedom, and we will be not having any mask whatsoever.
That's good.
No mask. We're having a mask burning, aren't we?
Well, look, if someone wants to wear a mask, no one has a problem with that either. People should have the right to make these choices. Some people have much more delicate health situations than others, and we're respectful of all those decisions. And at CPAC, we love our supporters who wear masks and don't wear masks. We just don't love the Karens who want to come in and tell us all what to do.
Exactly. We will make sure that everyone has the option to have their own preference.
That's right. So what's going on as we're planning for the event? By the way, demand is out of hand. We've already got 1,000 people that have pre-registered, and if you want to pre-register, we strongly urge you to go to conservative.org, go to the link on this CPAC and pre-register because, boy, 1,000 tickets before they're even on sale. That's a lot. So we could sell out very quickly. We sold out very quickly in Florida. I kept getting calls from many of you saying, hey, I always go to CPAC. Why can't you just sell me a ticket? Can't you work something out for me? And I couldn't. You know, once the fire marshal's involved and once government's involved, it gets very hard to do any of those things. So I'm telling you, if you really want a ticket, sign up.
Yes. Actually, the tickets go on sale tomorrow
That's
online.
right.
So if you want to pre-register, make sure you do that today. Otherwise, you may click on tomorrow and they may all be gone.
Yeah, I'll be gone.
So we want to make sure our Texans have a first opportunity, but again, we're opening it nationwide. We have a great lineup of speakers. I'm so excited. We got some special guests as well. Some we'll be announcing, I guess, in the coming weeks. We'll
That's right.
a complete listing of who all is speaking, and we've added some different things to the lineup this time. We're going to have a candidate row. So if you're running for office, or if you know someone who is running for office and they are conservative and believe in the values that we here at ACU do, we certainly like to invite you. You'll be have some strategic locations, right?
Good.
Our radio row, and what Ian tells us, we're like 2,200 media outlets will be there. So where can you find 2,200 media outlets?
Yeah, if you're a candidate for office and you want to get some interviews, CPAC is a good place to go. And Mercy had an important tweet. Since she's not here, and you're filling in for Mercy.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about Mercy's tweet, which will be up on your screen?
Well, Mercy's tweet was, I'm wondering if the woke corporations will stand up against BLM for their allegiance to Hamas terrorists. And we saw last year there were thousands of corporations throughout the United States who were supporting BLM with lots of dollars.
Millions and millions
of dollars. So our question would be to these corporate executives and these major investors is, why would you be supporting, or why would you allow your organization to support terrorist organizations
that are literally bombing Israel?
Bombing Israel, as right now. I mean, you'll see in the tweet here, there's missiles in the air, and I don't know about you, but I don't think we should be supporting terrorists.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that BLM came out in support of the terrorists, not in support of the nation state that has UN standing.
Exactly.
And of course has diplomatic relations with America and is a really close strategic ally. It's one of the things we'll be talking about at CPAC, Veronica, is not just the continual war against radical Islamic terror, but also specifically this idea of giving Iran a nuclear weapon. You know, it's always the opposite of what the politicians tell you.
Exactly.
They told us it was an agreement with Iran to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, but really John Kerry's blueprint would have allowed Iran to get nuclear weapons, and unfortunately Joe Biden is gone right back to that standpoint all over again. And as we've been talking about on the show, this should be a treaty. It shouldn't be able to be enforced without getting a supermajority vote in the United States Senate, and of course they're not going to do that. We'll be talking about that issue and so many others, and we're going to have a special Texas flair to this whole thing.
Oh, of course. We can't come to Texas without having Texas flair. Of course, we're going to have some Longhorns. Actually, will be at the conference.
Not graduates of the University of Texas, but the actual animal.
The animal with the big horns. Where hopefully we'll have more than one. So you can get your picture made with the Longhorn, or you can even adopt a Longhorn if you don't have space at your home.
Aren't they a little bit mean?
Well, I don't know. I've never been that close to one.
But, I haven't either, on purpose.
But we have some ranchers who are going to work with some really good friends at ACU who are loaning their animals to us for our special event. So you can actually help adopt a Longhorn. So you'll have your own little piece of Texas when you leave, because you can then get maybe pictures in the future of your Longhorn. But we have lots of things. We have some silent auctions going on. We'll have some live auctions. So there'll be a lot of fun there as well. But, really, our idea is to bring CPAC to Texas, because we have to, if Texas goes, we lose this country. And so
that's right.
We had some near scares lately, so we think it's the perfect time to come to Texas and spread our ideas, our values, and hopefully get people excited about what we can do in 2022.
And of course, it's not just about having a conference, it's about funding the grassroots activism around the country, including the centers that we've established to try to save America from socialism. You know, we branded our tour around the country America versus Socialism. We've now branded these CPACs America UnCanceled, because America should never be shut down ever again. And so these are really important times. And if your CPAC experience can range the gamut from spending $50 or less if you're a student, to spending a lot of money if you're a philanthropist or a foundation and you really want to fund our efforts. But we appreciate everything you all do. Once again, go to our website at conservative.org. I'm looking forward to bringing another show to you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll get Mercy back here, but Veronica's done such a good job. Maybe, we'll just give Mercy a little time off because she's been working so hard. Anyway, thanks for joining us again here on CPAC Now, and have a wonderful evening.
See you in Texas.